Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. So in this short presentation, I'm just going to run you through the construction and give you a little bit of detail on the sample essay that I've given you for as a representation of. So here's my introduction paragraph. I'm back to having a topic sentence. I'm not talking about Elie Wiesel yet. I'm just kind of saying the general and overall thing of that I'm talking about. So the Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi Party of Germany during World War II is possibly the greatest humanitarian crime in the history of the world. So generally, what am I talking about? The Holocaust. I'm framing it. I'm talking about this specific novel. The novel Night was written by Nobel laureate and Auschwitz survivor Elie Wiesel and published in 1960, 15 years after he was rescued from the concentration camps at the end of World War II. So now you know kind of who this dude is, what he did with his life, why did he write this book? Because he was a concentration camp survivor. This is the title of the book, Night, and then we can move. By examining an excerpt from the early part of the book, we can try to understand Wiesel's goal in composing it. So I'm not reading the whole thing, I'm just talking about an excerpt, and I'm telling you what question am I sort of trying to answer, which is what's his goal in composing it. And then here's my thesis. Wiesel's goal was to make sure that the world never forgot the horrors of the camps by recording firsthand the dehumanizing treatment of the Jewish prisoners and the heartlessness of their Nazi captors. So a statement in here is my claim. That's what his goal is, to make sure the world never forgot the horrors of the camps. My first and second key ideas, which is the dehumanizing treatment of the Jewish prisoners and the heartlessness of their Nazi captors. So I'm going to devote a paragraph to each of those ideas. Here's my body paragraph. In the concentration camps, the prisoners were not treated as humans, right? That's my first idea. In line 24, Wiesel describes some of the other inmates as silent, motionless, hunted down creatures. This description shows This description shows us how thoroughly the Nazi treatment had stripped away the humanity of the inmates of the camps. They could not even be described as people, but as creatures. Here's my second piece. Wiesel continues the analogy in lines 26 through 28 when he describes the camps as, quote, slaughterhouses and factories of death. A slaughterhouse is used for killing animals, not people, and a factory produces a product, not a person. In both cases, Wiesel is emphasizing the fact that Nazis did not treat their captives humanely, right? We're looking at all of this evidence and saying the Nazis aren't treating the Jews like people, they're treating them like animals, they're treating them like things, they're treating them like objects, but they're not treating them as fellow human beings. Here's my summary. It's clear that Wiesel felt and saw the dehumanizing effect of this brutal treatment had on the Jews of Auschwitz. Oh, as a side note for my page line numbers, I am using the document that I put up for you guys on Google Docs that you answered your questions on. If you want to use the line numbers from the textbook, that's fine too. You don't even really need to tell me either way. I'll figure it out, just so you know. Then here's my second body paragraph. Remember, this one is about the heartlessness of the Nazis. That's my second key idea. The way the Nazis treated the Jews was only possible because the Nazi guards were heartless monsters who did not view the Jews as people but as animals. Right? I'm kind of tying my two paragraphs together. Why could they treat the Jews so terribly? Because they themselves were really callous and heartless. In lines 30 through 53, Wiesel talks about the process of selection, where a Nazi would decide who lived. The Nazis would decide. He says that the prisoners were forced to strip naked and run in circles, and that from time to time Dr. Mengele noted a number. Here's my reasoning. Forcing someone to be naked strips away their dignity, and the fact that Mengele only noted their serial numbers and not their names clearly demonstrates that the Nazis had no compassion for their prisoners. Now, here in my second piece of evidence is where I'm going into the text, the research text that I found. So this is not from Night. This is a piece of evidence from a different text. It's talking about Night, but it's talking about some other details, and so I'm quoting them. Say, in the summary, Themes in Construction, Night, so that's the title of the article that I grabbed, it notes that at first, not even the Jews believed the horrors that they were hearing about, sarcastically noting that, quote, the Germans are human after all. The fact that the Nazis were human, right, that's my reference to my quote, only increases the impact of their inhuman treatment of the Jews. Right? So we can't say like, oh, the Nazis were like evil space aliens. They weren't robots. They weren't goblins or whatever. Like, they're people. They were just really, really, really bad people. And the fact that they were people makes the fact that they can treat other people as badly as they did all the more horrifying. Here's my summary. There's a saying that abuse destroys the humanity of both the abuser and the abused. right? So I'm tying it back to my first body paragraph, right? It took away the humanity of the Jews, but in doing these actions, the Nazis also kind of stripped away their own humanity because it was so awful to do. Here's my counter argument paragraph. It's a little bit weird because you couldn't have a counter argument that the camps weren't that bad or that Wiesel didn't experience what he did or that he was exaggerating or anything like that. Like that wouldn't make sense for a counter argument. So what can I have as a counter argument? Well, I could counter argue that maybe that's not why he wrote it, to remind people of what happened. Maybe he had another reason that he wrote it. So it's possible that Wiesel originally composed his text for a reason other than to make sure the world remembered the events of the Holocaust. Many people write as a form of therapy to deal with the traumatic events of their past. Perhaps this was even Wiesel's intention. So I'm saying, yeah, maybe he started out that way. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking for a counter-argument paragraph. To be honest, I almost didn't even include a counter-argument paragraph in my sample, but since I really wanted you guys to get the practice of writing one, I put this in. Is it the greatest counter-argument paragraph I've ever written? No, it's definitely not, but it's just kind of about the practice. Oh, I'm recording this at night, and if you can hear my son crying in the background, that's what that is. Anyway, sorry, to continue, however, his long history of advocacy for the Jewish people and the survivors of Auschwitz clearly indicates that his manuscript was meant as a legacy and memorial for the living and the dead. So I kind of tie it back around. I say, you could think this, but that's not right. You can look at the rest of his life and know that why he did what he did. This is running a little bit long. My conclusion paragraph is pretty much the same. What I want to point out to you is the summary is that although it surely helped him process his experiences, that's kind of a reference to my counter argument, Wiesel was composing a record of the horror and a lament for the lost. So why did he do what he did? He did it for this reason, as a record of everything that he experienced. So that's really all. The summary or the sample essay is available for you to read and go over at your leisure. If you have any questions, of course, just email me.